So then you would see it again at 39 coming in, at 48 coming in, then at 63. So you can see the years in your life, and often similar things will happen in each of the 12 years. But the understandings, if you stay in the same mode, if you're drinking or whatever, and you're just staying in the same mode of understanding, you'll see similar things happening at these times. And they'll be connected to each other. It should be a spiral that's growing and evolving as you're growing. But then once you've had this adjustment, you're applying this new outlook. You're trying to adjust your understanding to fit, to be a bit more appropriate, but you're still going with what you want to go. So for 6 years, you're pushing in a certain way. By the time you get to the Jupiter opposition Jupiter at 6, when you start school, at 15, when you're in high school, and you're sexual and everyone's noticing it and awkward about it, you're trying to understand where do you go with it or don't you go with it, and understanding where you are around that comes in. So it's awareness of the repercussions of your understanding. So I started from here, this is what I got to, whether the family's right or wrong or whatever, that's the awareness, or whether dad's right or wrong, whether people are telling me what to do, what's real, what's not. That's the awareness of the Jupiter opposition. That's at 6 when you're starting school. So it's also at 18 when you're deciding whether you're going to go to university or not, or going on school or not, whether you have kids or not, so it's the results of understanding the awareness of the opposition. From that point on, this awareness or lack of awareness you'll be reacting to that awareness or lack of awareness, and it'll be affecting the next 3 years, from grade 1 to grade 3, 6 to 9, or from 18 to 21. You're reacting to the understanding built up 6 years, and it pushed itself as far as it could, and you have a reassessment of it. And that reassessment can be good or can be bad. And it's that reassessment or that repercussion, the awareness of, well, I only got this done, why should I do that anymore? That understanding comes in, and it starts being the main factor rather than the understanding, the reaction to the understanding. The awareness of, well, that only got me there, why should I do that? Or why bother doing this? And that other understanding comes in. And it starts affecting your next 3 years. And then you're reacting to it. And as you're reacting to it, you're not necessarily putting in a new understanding. You're still going on the old and reacting to where it fits in, where it doesn't. And another adjustment will come at the square. So that would be at age 9 or age 21, or age 33. This adjustment will come in. And then at this point, you're really reassessing it. You're realizing there's a limit to the old way. You're seeing the limits of it. They're happening around you. And as these limits are happening, you're understanding, you're guiding your life according to these misunderstandings or understandings, depending whether you're doing this well or not, or adjusting or not adjusting. So what's there to learn? What's the story? What's the parable? What's the mystery? What's the understanding that someone's working with at any one of these bends? That's Jupiter. And it's not in astrology and making predictions. Usually you look at Saturn and see bigger things that's going on. There's not much time spent to how is someone assimilating or understanding? How do you reach their understanding so they can guide themselves better or get good guidance? If they're coming to you for advice, they're going to be wanting guidance anyways. So you want to give responsible advice, but you also want to give comprehensive advice. You're not just dealing with the things of when to buy a shop, when to buy something. You're dealing with the understanding and the position, and one's life has a strong effect on what's real, what's not. So this final reassessment, you can only push that. You're growing out of the old attitude, the old understanding, and you're reassessing it, and you're puzzling, how come it's only, I can't keep going with that. And you're running across new ones, but you don't know whether to pull them in or not, new understandings, and different people will come in with these until a new level of functioning comes in. So for a 12-year-old, my grandkids are 12 and 9. Suddenly at 12, the one hit 12. There's a huge difference between the 12-year-old and the 9-year-old. They can't watch the same things. The 12-year-old has to learn about sexuality, different things, to be aware of it. And the 9-year-old doesn't even have to know about those things just yet. But if the 12-year-old knows, he's going to tell his brother anyways. But there's still a distance. They're not playing with each other quite the same way anymore. It's a different. They're having different friends. The 12-year-olds going in different ways, doing different things. that the 9-year-old can't keep up with that much. So it depends on their compassion or understanding whether they play with each other or not, whether they get along or not. So like each one of these things can expand for individuals. Look at 20 people's church, you're going to get 20 different stories of how this happens. So it's not like you're trying to predict Jupiter. You're trying to tune into how they're going, when they're assimilating, when they're struggling with their understanding. And sometimes a right principle, something's right or something's wrong, or some insight as to how it can be so. Or if you really messed up and you think you've ruined everything, someone comes and says, no, you can still fix it up. You just have to start a little. And running across a wise person or a person who can guide you. That's really fortunate in life. And often good people will come at these times. But if you're in totally bad situations, you may run across good people and just laugh at them and not take it. I'd hate that. I'm thinking back, I wonder how many people I listened to and how many people I didn't listen to. Yeah, different realities, different understandings. So this cycle basically goes around and around. And this is the cycle as it's put on the scales of what we went around, going through each of the 12-year cycles. You'll see this repeating. Now, Jupiter. When you're doing your graphs, you're going to notice there's a lot more cycles, a lot more calculations to do, a lot more events to be thinking what happened every 3 years. When I first did this, I couldn't fill it all in. I had sections I couldn't remember, whatever. But slowly, as I did all my Saturn graphs and worked those through, slowly as I got the other ones, I was able to fill in the gaps to see what happened on my squares, like my Jupiter. I'm just going to run through it quickly, not extensively, but at 3, my brother was born, and my mother's mother, father, and brother all died within 5 months of my brother being born. So she had the birth, and then all her support system was gone. That was a new understanding for me, and for everyone else too. But it was a different perspective. By 52, at the opposition of Jupiter, my parents split apart, and I don't remember much about that, but it wasn't a stable time. At 55, we'd moved, my parents got back together. By 55, I had joined Cubs. I would be going out to Cubs and have the adventures of Cubs then. By 58, I'm 12 years old, but I'm selling magazines and I'm winning awards and for best sales. And I really made a lot of, well, for a kid, a lot of money, but I got my own bicycle. And I was able to, they would take me to different cities to try and sell these news magazines going on because I just had a knack for it. But that was the whole thing of having new ways of making money outside home, because we came from a poor family. We didn't get much of an allowance. We never got an allowance, or I think if we did, it might have been a nickel or something. But I was selling magazines. That was new enterprise. At 12, yeah, my dad told me I couldn't have the bike until I'm 16. I said, what if I make it for myself? I'd buy it myself. He said, well, then it's yours. So then I started selling magazines, doing things, not understanding. Within 3 months, within 6 months, I got my bike. So there was a different understanding growing. In 61, I'm 15. It was my first sexual experience. And again, that was an adventure, an attraction, and a repulsion. And then I wasn't interested for a few years. Like it just was, I wasn't ready for relationship. It was my first run-in with that. And then in 61, my dad had an operation, almost died, had his lung taken out. So there were a lot of, so he wasn't around. We'd moved to Montreal. It was a big change to a city. It wasn't a good time, but it was a struggle of and there were gangs and bullies. There was a lot of difficulties at that time. By the opposition of Jupiter, I graduated high school, but on the day of the grad dance, the week before the grad dance, my girlfriend the last 2 years, I found in the arms of my best friend. So I lost my best friend, lost my girlfriend. I still went to the grad dance, but I went out. I took a girl who had failed the year before and wasn't going to go, but she came with me. I went, but it was a fairly traumatic and shocking thing. And most of my social support and connection were tied up with my friend and my girlfriend, and it was just gone. So that was a significant displacement. And I think I failed that year as well. So complicated. By the next square, I was traveling. I went from Calgary to San Francisco, down to Mexico, down back to Montreal. I spent that whole point I was traveling, and really the next 2 or 3 years I was pretty much traveling. And then I ended up in India, spent a couple of years in India. And at the conjunction, so I was selling magazines in 58. In the conjunction, I came back and I got a job in a printing company. And I'm printing magazines and booklets, and I printed books of my own poetry. I began astrology, and I got married all on this second conjunction at 24. At the square, my marriage was splitting up 3 years later. At the same time, on a positive note, I built this really beautiful living room table, or one of those low tables, but in it I had put a mahogany turtle and put the I Ching around it, and I had inlaid all of this. And I had built that at that time. At the opposition, what was that, 76? I had another relationship going, but it was at the beginning of ending, but I made I recorded an album called Nuclear War 1984, vinyl album. It got banned, but it was a big experience. And I went to a first astrology conference at the opposition. So that was a whole nother perspective of things, aligning more within astrology, a lot more than I had before. At the square, 3 years later, I had a bookstore, and I had to let go of it, and there was a legal battle with someone who had ripped me off. Again, I ended a relationship, started another relationship, and I finished building the celestial harp, my musical instrument, on that square. At the conjunction, I did some TV shows on That's Life with the celestial harp. I was involved with an organization in the States called AFAN. I was one of the founding members. And I had given my library, I had a library, astrology library, and I gave it away about 5 years before, and to a group that was going to start a university, a spiritual university, and had the library, but they failed, and the library got destroyed and taken apart. And I saw it was such a terrible state. I was so furious, I took the library back. And that was on that conjunction. I took the library. That affected my life again for the next 12 years. And probably it was because I took it back unilaterally, an understanding of learning, it did threaten my marriage and was the beginning of the end of my second marriage. At the next bend, I was starting my next marriage. At the opposition, I was involved with a healing resources workshop. It was just applying my understanding of healing. I was teaching a lot all the time then. At 90, the square, I started the Star Center, and I did a tour with a book with my wife, and I toured across out west and east. At the conjunction, I was a steering committee member for AFAN, which I founded where was it? I started AFAN, and I was a founding member 12 years earlier. 12 years later, I'm a steering committee member. I'm a president of NCGR. I started a chapter in Toronto. I'm the editor of a News by Degrees NCGR magazine, and then an editor of AFAN magazine. So I was very prominent with my understanding and applying it at that conjunction. That's 94. So then I'm 48. So by 97, I completed a book, Eastern Systems for Western Astrologers, and a second book, The 200-Year Ephemeris, which the little booklet, you have an ebook of it, giving the planets' positions every month. So that was at the square. At the opposition in 2000, I had to move the library. I was playing in a gamelan band in the Indonesian consulate, and I was learning a lot of music during this phase, and it really, yeah. So then, by 2002, I was having drum workshops and teaching star drumming and drumming astrology things,